Welcome, everybody, and welcome to my Power Connection broadcast. My name is Bobby Umer. I'm here with Neil Shafer. Hello, Neil. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Delighted. Well, for those of you who are just joining in, this is the Power Connection broadcast. We broadcast every Monday and Wednesday around 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I usually bring in some guests to help me talk about topics that I care about, like leadership and personal branding and marketing and networking, authentic connection, thought leadership, entrepreneurship, business development, all that type of stuff. And usually I bring in them to complement me with their fantastic expertise. So that's really exciting that Neil's here because I've known Neil for a long time. He's a social media influencer. He's got some incredible expertise and great knowledge he's put out there in the form of books and blogs and you name it. And today we're going to talk about influencer marketing. What's going on now and what's going on in the future. And it's perfect timing because he's written a book about it too, which is fantastic. And again, if you are joining us, a few kind of housekeeping rules. Again, engage us. We'd love to hear from you. So make sure you say hello and you let us know. Type below. Let us know. Comment where you're from. From North America, South America, Australia, Asia, Europe, Africa. Let us know where you're from. And then, of course, the other thing is, given the topic, if you have any specific questions, this is a perfect chance for you to ask Neil what your thoughts are in terms of what we're talking about today. And then lastly, if you like what you're hearing, you can certainly you can tag people during the conversation. You can throw in some nice comments. You can clap, heart, light bulb, smiley face, all those different things to kind of get involved. So we want to hear from you. So make sure you engage. Tell us where you're coming from, and then start asking some questions. All right. So let's get right into it, Neil. And I'll start with a short story about how I met Neil. So I met Neil on Twitter. Was the first place where I met him, and we used to be engaged in a lot of Twitter chats and Twitter discussions and things like that. And I was always impressed by his knowledge around social media and influencer marketing and all that kind of stuff. And Twitter's been an interesting journey because when I first joined back in the day, there's a lot of great content out there and meeting some really amazing people. And then we transitioned that connection into something on LinkedIn, and I've been following his work for a long time. So I'm delighted that we've reconnected recently, and now here we are having this chat. So I'm really glad that we're able to do this, Neil. So why don't you start off by telling us a bit about, I love to hear just briefly about your story, kind of how you came to be in terms of what you're doing today, and maybe a little bit about your story.
Sure. I think for a lot of us listening, and obviously for Bobby and for the followers of Bobby, you probably have an interest in a lot of things. But one of the things that relates to everything that you're interested in is probably social media, right? And, Bobby's one, I'm another person, probably many of you are the same. You can say that social media has truly changed your life. So I was, before social media, I had a very, very different career projectile. I was in B2B sales, biz dev marketing for high technology companies in Asia. I speak Japanese and Mandarin Chinese. And I decided after we got married in Japan and after we had a baby girl, decided that we wanted to raise her here in the United States. And we moved back here. Now, I was still working for this company, which actually is from Ottawa in Canada, even though I'm based here in Southern California. So I have that Canadian connection, eh? And as things went by, and actually, we had baby number 2, and it was really hard for my wife not being born in the United States. I think people take for granted how hard it is for people outside of the country to come and live here. It really is not easy, and I sense that, and also with my mother-in-law being far away, so it required me to really think about who I was, why was I working, what was my purpose in life. And from that, I realized it can't be career first. It has to be family first. When you're single, sure, it's career first. When you have a family, it's got to be family first. So, I didn't realize it at the time, but I was also coming back from Asia. And why hire me to be your VP of Asia sales when you can have someone on the ground in Asia? So this was a reinventing of my career that was bound to happen. So along the way, there was a stepping stone. So it's 2008. And my network is located in Asia, or even though I grew up in Southern California, all of my classmates from high school, they went to school up at Berkeley. They're all in the Bay Area. I went to University of Massachusetts. The company I worked for 7 or 8 years was in Ottawa. So I had no local network. And I realized, man, I really got to build a network. Now, I was one of the first million users on LinkedIn. I joined like back in 2004. I didn't really think about it when I joined, right?
Yeah, me
And
too.
it's like, you know what? I'm going to tap into LinkedIn and see what I can do to help me build my network. And that was, I ended up, this was like February 2008, and I ended up just over a very, very short time. We used to have LinkedIn Answers. We used to have LinkedIn
Yeah.
events. LinkedIn groups used to be just really organically engaging, not spammy. And I would try to connect with people, help people, answer questions. And I ended up finding my job that year in July, but I also ended up launching a blog as a networking vehicle. I'm going to start working now, but I want to use this blog to answer all these questions I got about LinkedIn. So that job, unfortunately, in 2008, we entered the Lehman Brothers crisis, and this company decided they wanted to just unplug from international sales. So I was out of a job in 14 weeks. Now, it's funny because there's a lot of people from my generation. I hear Pat Flynn saying the same thing. There's a lot of us who are like, yes, we went through the recession we're going through now. We did this back in 2008, 2009, and we reinvented our careers because of it. It was actually a turning point, and it was a positive turning point, even though you don't see it yet. But what I realized then, Bobby, and I'm sure you can agree with this, what I realized then is that I was a passionate corporate employee. I always put company first. I was doing crazy travel as a salesperson. And, I had a 2-week trip planned to Asia. I had scheduled like 15 visits with executives at telcos and satellite operators. And, finally I was going to be able to, get that pipeline going. And then they just pulled the plug literally the day before my trip. And, I realized that, I'm such a passionate person that I needed to build something that no one can take away from me, because I felt like someone had taken something away from me. And that, my friends, is the best way to describe your brand. It stays with you wherever you go. It is your safety, your comfort. It's your career insurance. And that's where it really flipped the switch for me with social media. And then, the rest, I don't want to talk for too long here, Bobby, but the rest is history. My wife said, why don't you turn your blog into a book? And I said, well, if I don't find my next job, I will. So 2009, I published Windmill Networking, Understanding, Leveraging, Maximizing LinkedIn. And January 2010, I had 4 companies reach out to me for consulting help, and I launched my company. So we're now in the second decade of this, but it really all started with that turning point. And I very much think that what we're going through today, I mean, obviously we have the coronavirus. We have a very, very unstable society right here in the United States. But taking that aside, it is the same sort of, crisis. And I think companies are going through this crisis as well. How do you serve your customer when you can't physically meet them? How do you sell to your customer when you can't physically meet them? So we're all sort of becoming more digital first. We're all trying to find our purpose. And just looking at Ben and Jerry's and some of the brands that are now coming out in support of the protests, I think the pandemic has taught brands and people that, businesses are here to serve society. And you're here to serve society, and you need to be doing that, right? And if you're not doing that, you need to find a place where you can do that. So I think, for humanity, it's been the worst of times, but I do believe it's going to be the best of times. But regardless, it all comes down to that personal brand. What do you stand for? You have a voice. What's your voice going to be? How do you serve society? If it's through working at a company, that's awesome. If it's by starting out on your own as an entrepreneur, that's awesome. But this is the best time to really find yourself and move forward. And it all starts with that personal brand, as I'm sure you'd attest to, Bobby. So I know you probably have a lot to say to that, and you have similar trends in your career. So I'll stop there and have a chance to sip some coffee, but I'll go back to
you. Well, I typically don't spend as much time talking as I do with my guests. I let them to talk more, but I certainly throw in my 2 cents. I mean, one of the things that you said that struck me was that it's good to see brands and companies stepping up and talking about their humanity and going through the stuff that people are struggling through COVID, but and also now with some of the racial injustices and the protests that are going on. It's a very difficult time that people are going through. I think it's really challenging. So what's really important is that as a brand or as a big company, whether you're Nike or someone else, do you stand up for humanity? You stand up for human values and diversity. These are things that people are looking to see and looking for, and I think it makes a big impact. And these are companies that do have influence, and so it's important to understand that. Let's go back a bit to
and Bobby, I just want to say one more thing. One more thing about that. So I was on a radio podcast. It's actually going to be live on Sirius XM sometime this afternoon. But it's 2 professors from Wharton Business School, and they flat out asked me. We were going to talk about my book and influencer marketing, and they flat out asked me, Neil, do you feel comfortable talking about what brands should do? Not with the pandemic, which I'd already started talking about, but with the protests. And I talked about it. And because as a marketer, you always need to be aligned with your customers and with the public. And you need to pivot, and things happen, and you need to react, and you need to figure out what's best, and you need to have those skills, right? So I sort of enjoy talking about it. It made me think, and I agree 100% with you, Bobby. In fact, I think in social media marketing, we talk about you need to humanize your brand. You need to become a relatable brand. And that's how you do it, right? By being human, by opening up conversations with your community, and with supporting them. And if supporting the protest supports your community, then you should be doing it. And we're obviously seeing now more brands actually do that, which is great.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I put out a statement as a CEO of my startup, DYPB, Discovery Personal Brand. And, there's also, some people who, you cannot, even if you just say my heart goes out to people who are suffering and going through oppression, and, I'm hoping for, better times and to support people. And just, focus on humanity. You can't go wrong with doing that, as opposed to taking a political stance, on any sort of part of the spectrum. I think just saying that your heart goes out to people. Yeah, that's all you need minimally. And it's just amazing that some people don't want to do that. But brands are so scared about, what if I say something wrong and I upset this part of the people and this part of my followers? Like, ultimately, listen, if you can get behind what you stand for and care about, are you really concerned about losing those people there? Because if you do it the right way, they'll stick around with you.
Well, here's the thing, and what I talked about on that radio show, which I'll say here, is, and my concept of influencer marketing and who's an influencer is very different than what you see out there. And I think a lot of people got it wrong, because true influencers for your brand are people that already know, like, and trust you. They are a focus group of people that they may not be celebrities in social media, but they have some influence, but they're your friends, they're your fans, and you collaborate. And if you have that program in place, hey, to the 200 participants in our brand ambassador program, we want to do a Zoom call. We want to know how you feel about this. We want to know how your communities feel about this. And we want your help in helping us decide what should our messaging be here. Because I'll tell you what, if you have a 200-person influencer program, and these are all, I don't care if they're nano or micro or mid-tier influencers in social media that are in tune with their audiences, right? We're talking about people that can help weave together these fragmented audiences that brands are trying to target. And if they're all saying the same thing, number one, you're not going to go wrong. And number two, if you go wrong, these 200 people are going to come and support you because they were part of that decision. So this is something that I'd rather have an army of 200 influencers help me decide rather than a few people in a plush corporate office somewhere. And that's why a lot of brands make these social media mistakes, because it's just a few people. There's not the diversity. There's not the variety of perspectives that you need. And this is what influencers can provide.
Right. No, I appreciate that. And again, if you're just joining us, we're talking to Neal Shafer about influencer marketing in terms of trends going on currently, and also what's going on in the future. So if you have questions, again, I'd love to engage people. If you're on the broadcast, comment below, let us know where you're from, where you're calling in from, where you're listening in from, and then ask some questions. And if you have questions show up on the feed, I can kind of ask you those questions. But I'll start with my question, which is really going back to your book, which is, what inspired you initially to decide I want to write a book about influencer marketing?
So it's funny, Bobby, when we began this podcast, or I should say live stream, you were asking me, hey, do you have any good title ideas? And I said, hey, I really think that, whenever I'm interviewed on a podcast, what have you, it's all about serving your audience. What are your audience interests and how can we align it? And that's the exact same thing with content marketing, with content that I create. It's around the needs of my customers and who I serve and my community. So this book is no different. In fact, that first LinkedIn book was the same. The second LinkedIn book was the same. And then after that, my community didn't just need LinkedIn. They needed other social networks as well, which is why I'm one of the rare people who did not niche down. I broaden up. Right. Because that's the reality, is there's more to social media and digital marketing than just LinkedIn. So with this latest book, I just realized, you get a sense when, I teach at a few universities, I teach executives, I have my own consulting clients, I do a lot of speaking and obviously engage with attendees to get questions. I just noticed back in 2017, 18, that I was getting a lot of questions, not just related to influencer marketing, but also related to, hey, how do I become more influential? A lot of marketers see their friends becoming influential and they want to know how they can do it. I also noticed that I started getting a lot more, and I would call it, when as an entrepreneur, you have these multiple streams of income, I'd call it influencer income. And these weren't consumer brands. These were business brands reaching out to me for help. in creating an ebook or doing a webinar together with them, and it was income, right? So as an influencer, I saw that, wow, this is really starting to open up. So all of this combined with a test market I did on a Kickstarter like platform for authors called Publishizer, I basically put it out there as a test market. I'm going to write this book on influencer marketing. And as I did more research on the topic, I realized how so many marketers just got it wrong. They missed the point of it. They're miseducated, and there's so much more power once you tap into what it really is, that then I was on a mission. So the test market went great, sold a few hundred copies off the bat. Okay, I'm going to write the book. And I haven't looked back. And, the more I did research, the more I was convinced, and it really helped fuel my passion for the book and for talking about it like we're doing today. Because I do believe, let's take a step back for all the marketers in the room. I always talk about what are the main things you can do. You have your website, you have email, you have search, right? You have your blogging/content marketing, which helps your search. You have social, but social's become paid social, and organic social's dead unless you leverage influencers to incite word of mouth. And that's really why influencer marketing becomes sort of another pillar that we're seeing more and more companies invest in, that I'm evangelizing and passionate about. And those that read my book and listen to me begin to agree once they see the other side of the story.
I thought it was interesting you said that you also, went broad versus kind of niching on one platform. I'm the same way, actually. I put myself across all the platforms, and then as I learned along the way, some I gave up, and because they became obsolete, like Vine and whatnot, I didn't stop Snapchat. I tried that, it wasn't for me, but I tried them all, and I still do a broad range of them. Where do you spend most of your time when it comes to social media?
I would say, well, it's a great question. I definitely don't spend as much time on Facebook. Okay. But there's a lot of people that actually spend a heck of a lot of time there. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't. It's just not me. I'm very, Facebook for me is like, it's very personal. So I'm not like publishing every new blog post and podcast and stuff like that. That's just the way that I use it. Facebook groups are great. So whenever I'm in Facebook, I tend to spend more time in there. But, for me, it's Twitter and it's Instagram, to some extent LinkedIn. Twitter and Instagram are just the most engaging because they're the most open, right? And Twitter is where I'm most active because that's where I publish a lot of my blog posts, what have you. Instagram, just the amount of engagement. I mean, I got incredible engagement just off a Martin Luther King quote that I published yesterday. Nearly like 1,000 likes, and I only get normally 300 or 400, or so stuff like that. I know that I'm reaching people when I see that, and it makes me want to invest more time there. And same with Twitter. So, but yeah, LinkedIn, not far behind. And then Facebook beyond that. I don't really spend much time on Pinterest. I publish a lot of content there, but Pinterest is more of a social network, and it's been very valuable for my company in terms of generating traffic. But that's not much of a social network. But I'm on TikTok, but I'm not active.
I haven't done TikTok yet. See, I've been kind of avoiding that one because I was like, I'm not sure what the use of it for me would be, but I do understand people are getting a ton of followers. Like my niece has 10,000 followers. Like she's like 14. Like, come on.
Yeah. Well, I had 50,000 followers in Google Plus. It didn't really amount to much. So
Google Plus. Yes, exactly.
Let's put it all in perspective here.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that one. I actually spend most of my time on LinkedIn now. So it used to be about a year and a half ago, it was majority of my time was Facebook and Twitter. 65% Facebook and then 20% Twitter, and it's completely shifted. I'm still on Facebook. I find Facebook is great for some really great personal conversations about things that I really care about. I have the best conversations there. I learn a lot, and I like to talk about, share my pictures of my kids, things like that. But I find that I spend most of my time on LinkedIn now, creating content like this, as well as my other videos and blogs and things like that. And then I'm still doing Twitter because Twitter has really become a political platform. It's really where I talk about politics, social justice, some fun stuff too, like the new Lord of the Rings reunion on Zoom that happened with Josh Gad. That was pretty cool. Things like that. But mostly it's political and social justice type stuff. So
yeah, and if there's one platform I'd like to spend more time on, it's LinkedIn. And after Instagram, LinkedIn currently gets the second best engagement of all social networks. So
I agree.
I need to invest more time. And if you're listening and you're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be spending this much time on LinkedIn. No, keep doing it.
Well, and I've been actually saying that, people ask me where the place to spend time and invest, particularly when you want to build a thought leadership brand or even become an influencer. I've actually said that there's 3 places. I say Instagram, LinkedIn, and I say doing podcasts. What are your thoughts on that?
So, influence at the end of the day comes from having a community. And having a community usually comes from in the social space from being a content creator, right? So there are many ways to create content.
Right.
There's text, which means you blog. There's speaking, which means you podcast. There's video, which means you're a YouTuber, or there's photography, which Instagram would be your thing. So I think it really comes down to what are you passionate about? What would you want to do weekly for the rest of your life, right?
Yeah.
If video is your thing, then by all means go to. If speaking is your thing, then podcast is a no-brainer. In terms of the competition, there's way more blogs than there are videos and YouTube channels, and there's way more YouTube channels than there are podcasts. So in terms of supply and demand, definitely I've seen new podcasters just out of nowhere get tens of downloads per episode, hundreds of downloads per episode. It's even surprised me. Similar to how your niece's TikTok following surprised you. So yeah, I'd say that. But if it's not you and who you are, it's not going to help you. So, but yeah, podcasting is a very, very hot space. I started my podcast in 2013. I lost my passion about 2016, and then I restarted again last year, like Q4. And I'm seeing, I see the amazing growth that podcasting's had, and the people I'm reaching. So yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, and I mean, I haven't actually started a podcast. I consider my live stream to be my live cast, and I'm happy with that.
Sure.
Even though I have a face built for radio and podcasting, but that's fine. I'm happy to do that. But you make a good point about the fact that pick the one that you feel comfortable with. I mean, again, I'm a speaker. I love to talk, so being a live stream is huge for me. Doing videos is huge for me. I think it's really important. The other thing I think is important to remember is your target audience. Where are they? And what do they prefer? Right. So do they want to hear? Do they want to see Bobby's face and speaking and getting all animated, or do they want to hear my voice, or do they want to hear me write? And for the most part, I think they want to see me talk and stuff. I think that's kind of why I serve my audience that way.
Yeah, if you have a LinkedIn Live link or a YouTube link, people will click on it. If you have a podcast link, not everyone's going to click on it. Yeah, I'm not a podcaster. You know what I mean? So there is that part. It's not a mainstream, as much as podcasters like to tell you it's mainstream. But I will say I have found that I do find it to be more mainstream with younger audiences. And it was actually a millennial that worked at a company, one of my clients, that really got me rethinking about podcasting. So I would say if you haven't, do a search on iTunes, on Apple Podcasts for the keyword that interests you and see who's out there. You might be surprised.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, going back to your book on influencer marketing, I mean, maybe one of the things that I think people would want to know about is, is influencer marketing changing, particularly with this world? And if so, how is it changing now that we're kind of more online than live and in person?
Yeah, so, with the pandemic, we have to be digital first. And I think us digital marketers have been saying this from day one. You should be digital first because that's what the customer is. So I think everyone gets that. And the trends that drive the growth of influencer marketing, this pandemic does not change them. And what I mean is, number one, organic social's dead for most companies. It's become pay to play if you really want to incite word of mouth in social media. People, number two, they don't trust ads, right? And your paid social that sponsored looks like an ad. Even your organic social sometimes looks like an ad. But, more importantly, number three, people trust people more than they trust businesses. People trust people just like you and me than they trust an advertiser, a spokesperson, someone in PR, a CEO. And that's the reality. That's human nature. And that's, any brand could have become a YouTuber. They could have become a Twitcher. Monster Energy could have had 100 employees become gamers, have their own Twitch channels, become major, but they didn't. Right. And if they did, they couldn't because they're not people. It's like, oh, this is Monster Energy. This isn't, Ninja or whoever is the popular YouTuber at the moment. And that's why these influencers have gained community. They've been themselves. And so, as much as brands want to humanize themselves, they're still a brand. They're still in business to make a profit. People are there to support each other. People are there to share good information, valuable information. They're to engage, to entertain. And that's what good influencers do. So these trends driving the growth of influence marketing have not changed. And the whole idea, Bobby, it's funny, when I'm in Asia, they just leapfrog. They didn't even do a lot of organic social media. They just went straight to influencer marketing. Why even bother with this pay-to-play paradigm when we can just collaborate with influencers? So I would say you need a minimal organic social media presence, but the whole idea of, we post on Facebook and all of our fans see it, and then the friends Those days are long gone. So
Right.
it's time to wake up to the fact. But when you start to work with influencers, you see these many benefits. One of them is that risk mitigation factor, that user focus group. What should we talk about during coronavirus? How can we help you? And these are things, I do believe that influencers, they're not just there to help amplify your content. They're there to help you make content. They're there to co-create content for you, right? You don't even have to pay them to publish content. You can pay them just to help you make content that automatically is going to be better aligned with the communities you want to reach. That's one way. This user focus group is another way, and this can be used in so many ways. So, the net is, with COVID-19, you need to deepen relationships with a brand, right? People are online all the time. They need your help. I've been opted into so many email lists recently, and all these companies reaching out to me out of the blue with their email marketing. So they get that, right? But it's more than just email marketing to build relationships. It's really getting out there, having conversations. And, in many cases, it's providing customer education. But in deepening those relationships with your customers, it's a great time to also deepen relationships with influencers who may also be feeling the bite. They may also have a loss customers in influence, whatever it may be. So it's a really great time to reach out to them and say, we love your work. We may not have a budget now, but we'd like to, create a relationship now for the future. Or maybe you do create this sort of user focus group of influencers, and we'd love to tap into your thoughts, and we can offer you free product or a free year subscription, whatever it is. It's a small price to pay, but these are things you can still be doing right now, even with COVID-19, to really prepare your infrastructure for when we're beyond this. Because if your business wants to survive beyond this, you really need to get that digital infrastructure going. And as part of that, you really need to start creating those relationships with influencers.
Thanks so much for that. And we're talking to Neal Shafer, talking about influencer marketing, the trends and the future of influencer marketing. I'm going to ask a selfish question because, I have done influencer marketing. So I've been hired by some companies like Ford and here in Canada, Canadian Tire, and a couple other banks to do influencer marketing. I have a large network across Twitter, 500,000 followers, and then on LinkedIn, I have 55,000 followers. And I've used that, but I don't know how to pitch these guys. So, I guess my question is, I've done influencer marketing. I haven't really leveraged it as a business. I mean, it's nice when I get that passive income, which is great, but maybe I should be really reaching out to companies. So I would love some advice on what I can do to actually reach out to companies and say, listen, I have this influence. I want to help. And oftentimes what happens too is they don't even know, like when I've done influencer marketing, you're right, they don't actually know what the best things to do. And I'm like, no, have you thought about this? Oh yeah, maybe we should do a video instead. But yeah, let's do this because I know how to do this. Let me do this. And then, okay, go ahead. And then I do it. How do I reach out to build influencer marketing as an income?
Yeah, so I think there was some data in my book where 1/3 of the influencers hired by agencies or brands actually came from influencers pitching them. So there's definitely a lot of that out there. And especially if you already have a track record. I don't pitch brands. It's not my main income stream. But for those where it is, they are definitely pitching brands. They're if they meet them at conferences, they're reaching back out to them. They're including them in their stories and starting a conversation there on Instagram. Probably the easiest way to reach out, although you could do it on LinkedIn as well. And I think that if you were to do a search for influencer media kit, you'll find resources to help you create a media kit, or maybe you put it on your website. This is my following. This is what I'm passionate about. This is what my community is interested in. These are the brands I've worked with. I'm a fan of your brand. I already have some ideas. If you have budget to work with influencers or brand ambassadors, I'd love to, have that conversation with you and pitch you ideas. And it's the reverse engineering of brands saying, how do I reach out to influencers, right? You start just a conversation. How can I help you? And it really helps if you're a fan of that brand and you've already been talking about them. Then it becomes sort of a no-brainer.
Right.
I've already worked with other brands, just curious. You work with influencers. So yeah, you could reach out. Like I said, Instagram is very easy. LinkedIn, it may be hard to find, but if they have influencer marketing in their title, obviously that's someone else. Twitter, you can DM the customer support channel or whatever brand channel. It may not be easy to get through to people. And to be honest with you, a lot of them might be swamped, especially the bigger brands.
Sure.
Yeah, but that is something that you could do. And then you begin to set rates. So, okay, this is how much does this sponsor a live stream episode. And I think we've all all of us influencers have had to make up these rates as we go.
Oh man, it's so hard.
And there is no market price. It's really, how much is your time worth? Start with that. If you're going to do an hour live stream, what is that hour worth if you were to charge clients? That's where I'd start, right? And then from there, as you get more traction, you increase your prices. It's how I've done my consulting, my agency, everything. It's the same concept. That's the only way you know where your market value is. So yeah, everyone listening, I encourage you, start with the brands that you're a fan of, and what is an hour of your time worth, and go from there and see what they say.
No, that's great. I never actually approached anybody too. They approached me through some agencies that they knew about me. So they said, why don't you do something? I went, oh, okay. And then, yeah, of course, they asked the price. I don't know. And then I had to do some research, and it was all over the place, which is actually quite interesting. We have Hazib actually has a question.
And then Bobby, before we get to that, and I want to get to that question, but I just want to say, I normally work with brands in the range of X dollars to X dollars per post, or that is you don't have to give a solid, you can give a range. This is where my sales background comes in, right? Yeah. Give a range to get a sense as to their budget, or there's a lot of things I can do. I price myself according to the needs. What sort of budget do you have? Then I can propose something for you. So you may not get the budget, then you can give sort of a range in your pricing to get more of that budget. But that would be my advice. That's how you're going to maximize, because I have a standard price. And then I had a company reach out to me recently that basically offered me 4 or 5x of what I normally charge, because I was able to get the budget from them firsthand. So that's really my advice there. But let's get to that question.
Yeah, I'm sorry. And before I do the question, the opposite of that is someone asked me for what I was going to charge, and so I gave it to them, and it's okay, great. And I was like, oh no, I just gave it away.
You left money on the table, yeah. But if you're just starting out, you need a track record. So, once you have a few brands under your belt, that's when you start to raise. But at the beginning, I would be humble. You got to start somewhere. But yeah, over time, it's more like, no, I don't want to do affiliate marketing, because when I promote your brand to my audience, there's so much more value than I get from a commission that may or may not come my way. And if you know the laws of advertising, chances are it doesn't come your way unless you do it a lot. And then you're offering up free impressions that if they were to pay Facebook ads or Instagram ads or LinkedIn to get that many impressions, there is a monetary value there. So that's the other way to think about it, right? What would be, if this company had to advertise, how much would that cost? So I'll let you get back to the question.
Gotcha. So Steve's asking, I've been hearing that Instagram influencers will soon be looking for another job due to algorithm changes in Instagram. Is this true?
Okay, algorithm changes happen every day.
All the time. Yes.
All the time on every network. So let's, I think that this is one of sort of the misnomers about social media. Basically, the algorithm is the lifeblood. It is what determines what shows up in your newsfeed on any given social network. And every social network is fine-tuning that every day. They're testing some features with some users that other users don't get. They're trying to personalize that for your followers. So everybody is going to see a different algorithm. What this means is, in order to survive any algorithm change in any social network, it's not the size of your followers that count, it's the actual engagement. I'm a big fan of pruning. I prune email lists if they don't engage. I prune LinkedIn connections if they were irrelevant. I prune Instagram followers if they haven't posted for a few years. I'm not just going to unfollow them. I'm going to block them, because that's one more person that Instagram is sending my content to that's not going to engage. And that's how I work to build up my engagement across any. If I'm on Twitter and I'm tweeting too much, when are the times where I seem to be tweeting more than others that I don't get a lot of engagement? Okay, weekends, I'm not getting the engagement. Let's reduce the amount of tweets on weekends so that I get more engagement per tweet. So these are the things. This is how you defeat the algorithm, regardless of any changes it has. So for influencers, it's no different. Influencers have to live off the engagement, not the community size. And that's really the key message here. So nothing is changing. Influencers are not out of jobs. A lot of influencers, it's not 100% of what they do anyway. It's stuff they do part-time on the side. Maybe they're a stay-at-home mom, and this is a side hustle. Maybe they're a full-time employee, and this is a side hustle. It takes a lot of hustle to become a full-time, full-salaried influencer. So, also put that into perspective.
Absolutely. Perspective is key when it comes to influencers. And actually, that leads to another question that I have, but I want us to have a first one, which is, you mentioned pruning, which is actually really interesting idea. I've done some work pruning LinkedIn by hiring someone to help me do that, actually, because LinkedIn doesn't have really strong search functions to know like where people are and how they
A
engage,
lot of work.
which really sucks. And then what happened? They ended up actually deleting people that I didn't want to be disconnected with. I was like, hey, sorry, let's reconnect. Sorry, And then on Twitter, I've used some tools to help prune people who just don't engage at all or are not even active on Twitter. I'm just curious if you have any other ideas for what are some tools that you might use. I'm particularly looking at Instagram. What are some tools you can use for pruning?
So first of all, LinkedIn, there are no tools, as you said. Twitter, there are tools. Twitter has made it harder to do that.
Yes.
But you still may be able to find tools out there that might be able to like create a Twitter list that you can go through and unfollow, what have you. Instagram, there are some tools, but at the end of the day, here's what I do with LinkedIn, right? I want to prune, but I'm not going to spend 8 hours. I'm not going to spend a full day doing it. It's not worth it. But what I do is, and I've had the same conversation on Facebook where people look for triggers. So someone on Facebook said, I look at the Facebook birthdays and then I go into the profiles. So over the course of a year, I'm going into a few profiles a day. And if they're not relevant, I unfriend them. So with LinkedIn, we don't get the birthday notifications, but we do get notifications when there's a job change. And every day I get a few of these. And that's when I'll go in and look and see if they're relevant. But more important, and this is why you need to do this yourself.
Why are you getting to your list?
Trouble. But if you do it yourself, what I always do is you never know why you connect with them. You may have forgotten. I always press message, send message. If you press send message, you're going to get a history. Just today, there was a guy I was thinking of unfollowing. And then I went into the send message and I saw the history. We had talked 3 years ago. And it's like, oh man, I don't want to disconnect from you, man. But if I've never had a conversation with someone, that's me, and they're in an irrelevant industry. If they're in marketing, I'm not gonna, disconnect. So I do that. But then when I find, because I'm always at 30,000 followers, I'm always looking to prune. But then, when I started on LinkedIn, I was connecting with a lot of people in HR, recruiters, talent acquisition. So these are natural people that I will do a search for. And every 1 or 2 weeks, when I hit that 30,000, because new people want to connect and I want to accept, I'll go in and do searches and I will just prune 20, 50, 100 at a time. Just spend 15, 30 minutes to do that. And hopefully I only have to do that like once a month. But that is really the process there of using, LinkedIn advanced search by industry title. But with each one, I will click on that send message just to make sure there's no history. So that's LinkedIn, and that's a process I recommend you all do because, recruiters, people in HR and talent acquisition, getting my messages, getting my my new posts in the feed, they're not going to engage. That's lost engagement. So, and LinkedIn sees that as a bad signal, and it's going to show it to lesser people. So Instagram is the same. Now, Instagram is really interesting because you have sort of automated bot tools, which I do not recommend you use. You also have other tools that are basically iPhone apps. And I use an iPhone app. And what the iPhone apps will do is they can show you inactive people. They can also show you what they call ghost followers. These are people that, now the inactives, there's a lot of iPhone apps that support this. The ghost followers is a little bit harder to find, but basically these are the people that haven't engaged with your content over the last 30 days or 90 days. There was one that used to allow you to customize that. It no longer gives you that functionality. So over time, it's harder and harder to find these apps. I had to download like 50 to find a few. But the trick is that the apps will say, with one click, you can unfollow. Instagram is looking. And if you're using an app to unfollow people, I do not recommend it. So I recommend literally, each one, I take a screenshot of the names, and then I literally go into Instagram and one by one, I'll go to their profile, and that's where I'll do, the unfollow or the block. The other thing that I've done, and I actually need to write a blog post about this, Bobby. That's a great question. I use something called a data scraper, and a lot more growth marketers, people looking for marketing hacks are using data scrapers. Got to be careful. Social networks don't like you scraping data. But I was able to find through searching a service. I think they were out of Singapore, $10, $20, $30. I forget how much it was. And they would basically give you a spreadsheet of all your followers. So what I did with that is I would look at people that were following like more than 6,000. Because if you're following more than 6,000 people, chances are you're not engaging with my post because I'm one of 6,000. And you're just, a lot of those people are, not everybody, right? But a lot of those people are just trying to amass a lot of followers. So they follow a lot of people. So I started pretty aggressively looking at those people in that spreadsheet. I did this on the PC, right? On my Mac. I went in Instagram. one by one every day. I try to find 25 because I have like 16,000 followers. So I try to find 25 that are like 6,000 above. I look at when was their last post? Are they for real? Do they look fake? And that's where I make a decision, and it's a manual decision. Do I and I will. I'm not following them back to begin with, but I will literally block them so that my content does not go out to them because it's not going to get any engagement. So this, wow. I'm gonna download this video and use this for my next podcast because this is exactly what I plan to podcast about. If you're really serious about Instagram, because here's what happens, Bobby. I mean, we see this on LinkedIn as well, but people upload their Facebook friends. So it's like, oh, Bobby, and you connect. And that was back in 2013, and it's 2020. And they haven't posted since 2013.
Yeah.
So they're a friend, but they're not on Instagram, right? They're not going to engage with your content. Why waste a follow or why waste a follower when it's going to go out into the black hole of engagement? You're going to get nothing, and you're going to get penalized for that. That's the mindset. If you really want to get more engagement from your community, it's not the size, it's the engagement. And that's the ultimate algorithm killer. And I highly recommend. I have reduced my followers from 17,100 to 15,800. I'm very proud of that. I don't care if it's 17,100 if I don't get the engagement. I'd rather be able to say I get an average of 3% engagement per post rather than have 10,000 followers and get 20 likes per post, which is 0.2%.
Right.
Otherwise, you're not reaching your community, or if you have a community, it's not the right community. Right. So those are the things and brands should be doing the same thing, but I don't know, brands should be blocking people per se, but that's the mindset. As a person, it's okay. That's the mindset you need to have if you really want to become more influential on social media.
Okay, and that was a very great detailed answer. So just a couple of quick questions I want to get before you have to leave. So Hasiba just asked, great point, engagement over quantity, influencers that were buying followers are in trouble. Is this a good time now to switch from Instagram to TikTok? What's your short take on that?
Do you enjoy dancing?
Yeah.
Are you a good dancer? Are you an entertainer? The people that do really good at TikTok, like the people who do really good at YouTube, are really good at video, and they have really distinct personalities. Yes. Are you that person for TikTok? At Social Media Marketing World this year, the largest social media conference, right before lockdown, the first week of March, there was huge crowds for TikTok, introduction to TikTok, why every brand should be on TikTok. And Bobby, there were some guys, social media authors, influencers that were saying why every B2B business should be all in on Snapchat. You gotta get through. And, and I want to get even more personal about this, Bobby. Yesterday, I noticed all these blackout posts on Instagram.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what? This isn't, I understand what people are doing, but I also did a search on Twitter, and there were a lot of people saying it's sort of a cop-out. It's easy to do, you do it, but what do you have to say? How are you supporting? So I posted this quote. I went into Canva. I found a quote, found a picture of Martin Luther King Jr. that, once you lose your voice, in fact, you know what? Give me 1 second here. I want to make a point here. Very, very important point. And this has been my top most performing post. So right now, I have 16,000 followers. I have 883 likes on this. So it's over 5%. But our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. And I posted it and I said, we all have a voice. There comes a time to use it. Now is that time. I did not use the Black Lives Matter hashtag. I did not use Blackout Tuesday hashtag or any of those. I didn't even use a hashtag. I just wanted to send it to my followers. But then after I added it in the comment, and right now when I look at my insights, it's reached 89% of the accounts that reached were not following me. And right now, this is the first time I have 17 people that actually republished that post as a story. Right. Mm-hmm. So this is the power of you saying, I decide not to do TikTok because it's not right for me. It's also not where my audience is. I'm going to get better at LinkedIn. It's always easier to see the grass is greener on the other side. I would double down where you're knowing that a lot of your competitors are going to waste their time on TikTok. That is honestly how I feel.
No, I appreciate that. And I mean,
and you know what? You're never too late. If TikTok explodes, fine. You'll go. I remember Gary Vaynerchuk. He was doing ads on Instagram saying Snapchat's where it's at. You got to come over to Snapchat, right? I'm not going to.
Same with Meerkat. Meerkat's where it's at. Remember that?
Exactly. So you have to do what's right for you, and you have to be passionate about it, and your audience has to be there, and you have to be able to commit to create content for that platform. And if those stars are not aligned, I would say, okay, I thought about it. I'm not going to do it. I'll keep an eye on it. If there's, in my Twitter feed an article, I'll read it. But we're not at that point yet where everybody needs to be on it.
No, I appreciate that. And, like I posted the Blackout Tuesday, but one of the things is about, for me, it's just a 1 day thing, and it's a powerful message. And then, but I also post a lot of stories around, what are you doing to learn about Black Lives Matter? What are you doing to learn about, what's going on and things like that. So I think there are different perspectives on that. So I'll just throw it out there.
No, don't get me wrong. Everybody has to do what's right for them.
Exactly. No, I understand. It was a very divisive thing. For me, it was more about what are all my Black friends saying, and so I was listening to them, and it was a very divided issue. But I think what's important is that people were talking about it. I think that was really important.
No, I agree. However you support it, that's great. I will say, Bobby, I was scared. I don't post political on social media.
Neither. On Instagram I don't, and on LinkedIn I don't, but I decided to share that on both for the first time.
That was heartening to see the engagement. That means that I did the right thing. So if you're ever in doubt, do it. Look at the engagement, and if it's your best post ever, then I mean, there's a lot of reasons why it was, because people are, looking for content like that. But anyway, there's no one right or wrong answer with any of this. You got to do what's right for you.
And I did have another question, but I want to respect for your time. It's not,
one final question, Bobby. Let's do it.
So the one question is, there are some influencers out there who are sharing their stuff on what some people are deeming not important because of what's going on with COVID and what's going on with the racial injustice, and they're like, do we really need to hear about this next kind of makeup thing? And so what's your thoughts on that? Because should they evolve a little bit, or should they mix it up? What do you think they should do?
Well, it's the same message I tell brands. Once COVID-19 happens, look at all the messaging you've scheduled for the next 3 months. Does it make sense to do today? And I think people need to do that as well. Now, are these influencers that were paid to talk about makeup where they have an annual contract where they have to publish once a month? That may be. But I agree with you, Bobby. But on the other hand, right, I mean, on Twitter, I'm still publishing business content and it still gets engagement. So you need to be true to your audience. And if your community is eating that up because they're doing more Zoom calls, and at the beginning of the pandemic, they didn't worry about their makeup, and now they are worrying about their makeup, that is between the influencer and their community. You can't diss an influencer if you're not part of their community. They serve their community, and if they keep getting that engagement, God bless them. Keep doing what you're doing.
Love that. Okay, where can people reach out to you if they need to see you or connect with you or get your book? Like, what can they do?
Well, my brother thinks this is really corny, but I do always have my book on my side. This is The Age of Influence. You can find this in Amazon chapters, wherever you buy books. I'm Neal Shafer everywhere. And once again, that's NealSchaffer, the real Neil, the real Shafer, neilschafer.com. And I also have my own podcast called Maximize Your Social Influence, if you're interested in this concept of influence and how it relates to digital social media marketing.
Well, listen, thank you, Neil, for showing up. All Neil, all real. I appreciate that. Once again, it's the Power of Connection broadcast every Monday and Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll see you guys next week on Monday. Join me then. I'll have another great guest, and have yourself a safe week. Thanks so much, Neil. All the best to you. Take care.
Thanks, Bob. It was an honor and a pleasure. Good luck, everybody. Cheers.